Hey guys. So at this point, I'm looking at May the 15th to the 16th, which is Julian 5-2. And on the Mazzaroth Enochian calendar, that would be Nisan 26th, which makes it the feast of the first fruits of the barley. Remember, the rapture is a typological fulfillment of the barley harvest. May 15th to the 16th is also exactly 88 days after the 217 solar eclipse, and it's 8 months and 8 days after the blood moon prior to that eclipse, back in September. This date also fulfills the 276 sign, because it's exactly 2 years and 139 days after that sign. And remember, that sign involved the first, the third, and the ninth constellations. So that seems to encode those 139 days. This date also happens to be 2 years, 4 months, and 19 days after the 276 sign, which is reflected in the dimensions of the sign, because if you sum the ecliptic longitudes of the participating luminaries, 35 degrees, 108 degrees, and 276 degrees, they add up to 419 degrees, hence the 4 months and 19 days. And as I mentioned, May 15th to the 16th is Julian 5-2, and Acts 27 encodes that date right in the first verse, when it mentions Julius and Augustus. Julius and Augustus is a hint for the Julian calendar because the months of July and August were given those names when Rome switched to that calendar. And if you look at the Strong's numbers of Julius and Augustus, you'll notice that each happens to contain 457, which is the 88th prime number. Removing that number from each one leaves behind a 2 and a 5. So altogether this is encoding Julian 2-5, aka Julian 5-2. May 15th to the 16th. At this point, you might recall that Habakkuk earthquake, which also encoded Julian 5-2. Remember, that earthquake struck on the same date as the last row of my Habakkuk tables, fulfilling Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2-3, which states, "Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, and at the end it shall speak and not lie." And at the end of my tables, the Habakkuk vision spoke through this magnitude 5.2 earthquake in Julian, California, encoding Julian 5-2. And on top of that, this 5.2 magnitude earthquake was recorded exactly 2.5 miles south of Julian. And by the way, the earthquake struck at a depth of exactly 8.88 miles. Jesus in Greek equals 888. Another reason you might remember the date of May 15th is because that was the date that James Comey, initials JC, posted his 8647 photo. That could also be encoding the date of Trump's death. Either way, because the rapture happens at the last Trump. And the date of May 16th might also ring a bell, especially if you've been watching for a long time, because back in 2022, there was this big eclipse midpoint centered on this May 16th blood moon. So this eclipse midpoint might have given us the date of the rapture exactly 4 years in advance. By the way, I think it was Ken Potter's channel that had originally posted this chart. Now, in the sky on May 15th to the 16th, we will be on, or just before, the new moon in Taurus, and the moon will be in the process of completing a crossing of the celestial sea. So that would fulfill the slackline pattern we've seen so much of. The crossing of the celestial sea is also symbolic of the crossing of the Red Sea, and the symbolism here is perfect. You've got the moon, as the bride, crossing the Red Sea and becoming hidden right as it reaches the other side, because now it's a new moon. And that's probably why there's all that imagery about the crossing of the Red Sea in the 888th chapter of the Bible, Amos 9. It's hinting at the moon's crossing of the celestial sea just prior to the arrival of Jesus. Alright, so now let's take one last look at the calendar spreadsheet. My high watch dates are Friday and Saturday, May 15th to the 16th, which on the Mazzaroth Enochian calendar corresponds to the Feast of the First Fruits of the Barley. And that's 5-2 on the Julian calendar, because Julian 5-2 equates to May 15th to the 16th, noon to noon. Also note that these dates are just before the moon and or Venus reach 88 degrees on the ecliptic, which from what I can tell seems to be when the enemy plans to unleash destruction on Babylon, hence why we would need to be taken out just beforehand. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to share in this video, so I thank you for watching, God bless, and Maranatha.